Have you ever thought about why humans are so eager to reach for the stars? Why, after thousands of years of contemplating space, we're now on the verge of colonizing the Moon and Mars? Yet, despite being closer to Earth than Mars and having many similarities to our own planet, Venus remains an enigma, a planet that, despite its fascinating potential, has largely been ignored in favor of the red, barren world of Mars. We've sent dozens of probes to Mars, with multiple missions currently exploring the planet and more nations planning to follow. But Venus, our closest planetary neighbor, has only seen a handful of successful missions in comparison. Why is that? Let's explore the question of why Venus isn't getting the same level of attention, even though it shares so many fundamental characteristics with Earth. The first thing that stands out is that Venus is, in many ways, almost a twin to Earth. Both planets have nearly identical diameters. Venus is about 12,104 kilometers, while Earth's is just a bit larger at 12,742 kilometers. Venus's mass is 81.5% of Earth's, and both planets share a similar density. They are made up of iron, oxygen, silicon, and magnesium, and both have similar internal structures with a metallic core, a silicate mantle, and a crust. These resemblances often lead people to ask, why isn't Venus our primary target for exploration, especially when it's so much closer to Earth than Mars? There's a deep and fascinating reason why humans have gravitated toward Mars, and why Venus remains far less explored despite all of its intriguing similarities to our own planet. The simple answer lies in one crucial fact: Venus has undergone a process that transformed it into one of the most hostile environments in our entire solar system. Venus is hot, toxic, corrosive, and inhospitable to life as we know it. Mars, on the other hand, offers a more hospitable environment, at least in comparison, and has potential for future colonization. The surface temperature on Venus can reach a blistering 465 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead, while its atmospheric pressure is about 90 times that of Earth's. It's a planet where nothing, not even the toughest spacecraft, could survive for long. While both Venus and Earth are rocky planets with similar sizes and compositions, the fates of these two planets have been dramatically different. Earth, of course, remains a thriving planet, with conditions that allow for liquid water and a stable climate. But Venus, due to its proximity to the Sun and the thick carbon dioxide-rich atmosphere, has gone through a runaway greenhouse effect that has turned it into a literal hellish world. While Earth is warming up due to human activities, Venus is a cautionary tale of what could happen to our own planet if we don't take action. And that's part of the reason why Venus is so compelling to scientists, even though it's rarely visited. For years, Venus was thought to be a planet with conditions similar to Earth's, perhaps even a planet that could have hosted life in the distant past. This idea has been suggested by many scientists who looked at the planet's size, its proximity to the Sun, and its internal structure, which suggested that it could have once had oceans of liquid water, a thick atmosphere, and perhaps even life. However, Venus's extreme transformation into the inferno it is today has left many wondering whether Earth could one day suffer the same fate. Could we be on a trajectory that mirrors Venus's history, and if so, wouldn't it be wise to study the planet more closely to understand what could happen to our own world? After all, Venus is an example of what happens when a planet's atmosphere undergoes a runaway greenhouse effect, and that's a terrifying prospect for Earth, which is currently experiencing rapid climate change. The atmosphere of Venus consists almost entirely of carbon dioxide, 96.5%, with traces of nitrogen and clouds of sulfuric acid. This thick atmosphere traps heat and causes temperatures to soar, making Venus the hottest planet in our solar system, hotter even than Mercury, which is much closer to the Sun. This extreme heat, combined with the crushing atmospheric pressure, makes Venus one of the most hostile environments for both human exploration and robotic missions. Even the toughest probes sent by the Soviet Union and NASA have struggled to survive on the planet's surface for more than a few hours. The conditions are so extreme that any spacecraft or probe sent to Venus faces an almost insurmountable challenge. One of the reasons Venus is not a focus of space exploration is simply the immense technical challenges involved in sending probes to its surface. To begin with, the temperatures are so high that they can melt many of the materials used in spacecraft construction. The atmosphere's high density creates intense friction, which makes it difficult for probes to slow down and land. In addition, the clouds of sulfuric acid and the thick layers of carbon dioxide make it difficult to analyze the planet's surface in any meaningful way. In comparison, Mars, while still an extremely difficult environment, offers relatively better conditions for exploration. Mars has a thin atmosphere, lower gravity, and surface conditions that allow for much more manageable landing operations. Yet, despite these challenges, we have learned some remarkable things about Venus over the years. The Soviet Venera missions of the 1960s and 1970s were among the first to make significant strides in exploring Venus. Venera 7, in 1970, became the first spacecraft to successfully land on the surface of Venus and transmit data back to Earth. Although the probe only survived for a little over 23 minutes, it was a groundbreaking achievement in space exploration. The Venera 9 mission in 1975 sent back the first photographs of Venus's surface, revealing a landscape that was both alien and eerily similar to Earth's in some ways. The Venera 13 and 14 missions in the 1980s provided us with some of the only color photographs of the Venusian surface, giving us a glimpse into a world that was both incredibly hostile and strangely familiar. Despite these achievements, we still know relatively little about Venus compared to other planets in the solar system. The Venera missions were revolutionary at the time, but their data was limited by the harsh conditions they faced on Venus's surface. The probes could only survive for a short period before the extreme heat and pressure destroyed them. Today, our understanding of Venus is largely based on data gathered from space-based instruments, such as NASA's Magellan mission, which used radar to map the planet's surface from orbit. We know that Venus has large volcanic structures, vast plains, and mountain ranges, much like Earth. Some scientists believe that Venus could have had oceans and a more Earth-like climate in the distant past. This idea is supported by computer models and simulations that suggest Venus may have once been more temperate, with conditions that could have supported life. Despite the fascinating similarities between Venus and Earth, Venus offers little hope for future colonization. The planet's thick atmosphere, extreme temperatures, and lack of liquid water make it incredibly difficult to imagine any kind of human presence on its surface. In fact, Venus is often considered to be a cautionary tale, a warning of what could happen to Earth if we don't take drastic action to address our changing climate. Venus has suffered a runaway greenhouse effect, where the heat from the sun has been trapped by the thick carbon dioxide-rich atmosphere, causing the planet to become uninhabitable. Could Earth face a similar fate in the coming centuries if we continue to pump greenhouse gases into the atmosphere? This is a terrifying thought, and one of the reasons why Venus holds so much scientific interest, even though it's not currently a prime candidate for human exploration. On the other hand, Mars, while still an extremely hostile world, offers a more promising possibility for future human exploration and colonization. Mars has a thin atmosphere, which means that while it doesn't have the thick greenhouse effect of Venus, it still allows for the possibility of terraforming. Some scientists and visionaries, like Elon Musk, have proposed the idea of creating an artificial greenhouse effect on Mars to warm the planet and make it more hospitable for humans. While this idea is still in the realm of speculation, it demonstrates why Mars is such an attractive target for exploration and colonization. Unlike Venus, which has been transformed into a hellish world, Mars still holds the potential for future human habitation. In recent years, space agencies like NASA and private companies like SpaceX have made Mars exploration a top priority. NASA's Perseverance rover and China's Tianwen-1 mission are currently on the Martian surface, studying its geology, climate, and potential for past life. SpaceX's plans to establish a human colony on Mars by the 2030s further underscore the growing interest in the red planet. Meanwhile, Venus has largely been left out of these discussions, despite the fact that it shares so many similarities with Earth and might offer valuable insights into our planet's future. So, why do we invest so much more in Mars exploration than in Venus? Part of the reason is simply that Mars, while still a hostile environment, is more approachable for space missions. Its thin atmosphere and lower gravity make it easier for spacecraft to land and take off, and there is evidence that Mars may have had liquid water in the past, which opens the door to the possibility of past life. Venus, on the other hand, is so extreme that even sending probes to study its atmosphere can be a monumental challenge. The thick clouds of sulfuric acid and the crushing pressures on the surface make it incredibly difficult to design missions that can survive long enough to collect meaningful data. Despite this, Venus is still incredibly important to our understanding of planetary science and climate change. The planet's extreme greenhouse effect serves as a warning for Earth, and studying Venus could help us understand the long-term consequences of climate change on our own planet. While we may not be able to send humans to Venus anytime soon, its lessons are clear. Climate change can have catastrophic effects on a planet, and if we don't take action, Earth could one day follow Venus's path into an uninhabitable future. In the end, the story of Venus and its comparison to Mars offers us a glimpse into the future of space exploration. While we're drawn to Mars because it offers hope for colonization and the possibility of life, Venus stands as a stark reminder of the dangers we face as we continue to alter our planet's atmosphere. Exploring these two planets, each so similar, yet so different, will provide us with critical insights into the fate of our own world and our place in the universe.